Hey everybody, Tom here with Hidden Beats, and today we're talking with the up and coming Spitty. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, it's great to get to sit and talk with you and kind of pick your brain and see what makes you tick. But for those who are new, can you give a little kind of intro about yourself?
For sure. Like Tom said, I go by the name Spitty. I'm a rapper from Brampton, Ontario. That's where I grew up. I was born in Florida, actually. I've been in love with rap ever since I was like 6, 7 years old. And I started rapping myself when I was in high school, when I was 16, 17. And it's been a journey since then. I've been on the grind for many years now, but in the last little bit, it's been going really well. And I do it full time now. I went to university for my bachelor's in computer science, but I actually worked in IT and then saved up money and quit to now do music full time. And my style of rap, I like to call it like conscious bangers. To me, it's kind of motivational, upbeat, catchy music that always has some sort of deeper meaning, or at least there's a focus on lyricism and the message that's being portrayed. So that's kind of my brand, and that's a little bit about me.
Nice. So I guess the first question is like, who sparked the interest for rap for you?
For sure. So I always credit it to this one specific memory, which is when I was young, we had Rogers basic cable, like just 1 through 30 channels. But when I was 7 years old, we switched to Bell Satellite and we got like a whole new set of channels. And my cousins came over that weekend and they put me onto a channel called BET, Black Entertainment Television.
Yeah.
And that was my first time ever seeing like music videos. Before that, I just heard songs on the radio as a kid, like Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears and that kind of stuff. So I specifically remember seeing 50 Cent in the club. He's taking off the hospital, the like little things from the hospital. He's hanging upside down. He's partying. And I was like, the energy in this song, the catchiness, like the vibe is just like nothing I've ever heard before. I'm only 7 years old also, so I'm not exposed to too much, but there's something so captivating about that song. And then right after that, in that same whatever top 10 countdown or whatever, there was a song by Nas called "I Know I Can," which is a super motivational, inspirational song. The chorus is sung by kids. It's like, "I know I can be what I want to be. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I want to be." And I felt like with the kids and everything, like he was speaking directly to me as a kid, like inspiring me. And so those two songs, like, and those artists really showed me the range of rap and hip hop and how it can just be fun and braggadocious, or it could be super deep and meaningful. And at the time, I didn't even know those two artists were from like the same ends in Queens, you know? So it was crazy to me, this kind of contrast, but I loved all aspects of it. It was like, I love the fun part, the energy, the good positivity and the vibes, but also the depth, the meaning, the ability to actually speak on real topics and to directly impact people. So ever since then, like I wanted to be a rapper. It just took a minute to kind of finally find my own and start.
Hmm. So do you remember like the first album that you bought that was that magical piece of music that, hit you in so many ways and you had on repeat forever?
So for me, growing up in the early 2000s, I was really exposed to a lot of music through not buying it and through means of like the internet,
Yeah.
and things like that. But the first album I clearly remember actually digesting properly as an album is the album that In the Club is off of, Get Rich or Die Trying. And to
Okay.
this day, that's still one of my favorite albums. It's not, the most lyrical, the most deep. He's pretty surface level with his bars, but the energy, the brand, the personality, the beats, just the overall packaging, like to this day, that's still one of my favorite albums that I could bump front to back. And it really showed me like what a cohesive piece of work could be, and like just how you can really solidify yourself as a person and an artist. 50 Cent has never really topped that album ever since then, but to this day, like people still hold that in high regard. I just saw him in concert last year for his anniversary tour. And like most of the songs he did were from that album, which came out 20 years ago. So it's just a testament to show like how long lasting the music can be.
Yeah, he was here at in Ottawa at Blues Fest, and I got to get out and see him there too. One of the main things I do is actually photography, so I'm in the pit covering the live show and just watching him do his thing on there. Like you said, he may not be one of those kingpin lyricists, but he still puts on a hell of a show, and all of his music has staying power. Like it's there for forever, really.
Yeah, so even though most of the songs I listen to from 50 Cent are from back then, like he's still a constantly in regular rotation for me to this day.
Now you're someone who likes to focus on lyrics. Who would you say influences maybe some of that now in your current sound and your current music?
So after I kind of got into rap and started discovering it more on my own, the artist that really, really inspired me on that lyrical side were people like Eminem, Lupe Fiasco, Jay-Z, early Kanye West, that kind of stuff. And to this day, like artists that kind of were inspired by them or kind of came from that path or lineage are artists that I really like too, you know. So from Jay-Z, you get the J. Cole's and the JIDs. From Kanye and Jay-Z, you get like the Big Sean's. Um, I also like artists like Denzel Curry, um, Schoolboy Q, Ab Soul, Kendrick Lamar, all that TDE camp. A lot of those artists, off the top of my head, definitely inspire me. Artists from Chicago like Mick Jenkins, Saba. There's different pockets, you know, of artists that I really, really like and stay inspired by.
Yeah, I think it's nice that you can respect the different like layers and levels of the different parts of the music because there's always something interesting out there.
Yeah, and even though I'm mainly focused on making, you know, the lyrical music or the more music with depth, like I love all of it. You know, I love the ignorant music, I love the hype stuff, and the really deep uh deep album cuts too.
Hmm. Yeah, last night we actually had NLE Choppa here, and just
Mm.
his live show is just fun and insane and all kinds of crazy stuff. He may not be the top of my list, but what a down to earth guy, and just watching his live show, you know, it's fun. He's just having a good time doing his thing.
Yeah, and you can really see why his audience connects with him and like they just rock with him as a person, you know. So that's cool. I think with music and art, a lot of the times when people relate to the person and that can mean more just as much as the music sometimes.
And that's actually kind of why I do these interviews, because now that we know a bit, you know, who you are as a person, your music speaks a bit differently now.
100%, 100%.
So, you being a person with eclectic taste for hip hop, who's your top five?
So my top five, I actually got asked this question earlier this year, but more like Mount Rushmore, so top four. So for me, it's a lot of the artists I just mentioned. So Lupe Fiasco is actually my favorite rapper of all time.
Okay.
I know a lot of people don't know him, but like his first couple projects just really, really shaped like my love for hip hop. Eminem, Jay-Z, give me Kendrick Lamar, and then personally, I'm trying to slide myself into the top five and hold that fifth spot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of artists that I could put in there in that fifth, sixth spot, but for me, that's my goal is to be recognized in that category of top five. So
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You want to hit that spot, so for sure. Now, what's your thoughts on who won the Drake Kendrick beef?
man, coming from Toronto and following a lot of Toronto pages and stuff, the media here will convince you that Drake held his own, and he did. But I got to give it to Kendrick Lamar. He was in my top five. I also think personally, I'm a huge fan of rap. I'm a huge fan of the battles and everything, and I think it was going really well on both ways. You know, Kendrick had the slip up with the daughter thing. I think that kind of threw
Hmm.
off that song a little bit, but the rest of that song was really dope. And then Drake's Family Matters was super fire. But I think Not Like Us just pushed it over the edge. And
Yeah.
then Drake not having a response for that, and Kendrick making Not Like Us, which is literally like the most like dumbed down out of all the songs. It's like the radio hit. It's like he went for the catchy vibe and he did the Drake move on Drake.
Hmm.
Like, and the fact that Drake couldn't respond to that, which should be his bag, was kind of shocking to me. And that really, really solidified it. And then when Drake kind of went silent and then Kendrick had the whole concert, now he's got the Super
Yeah.
Bowl thing locked up, and Drake said he's as big as the Super Bowl. And you know, Drake's been dropping cool songs. Like I liked his song with Camila Cabello. I liked his song with Gordo,
Hmm.
but nothing's really commercially hit, which is surprising, I guess, for Drake, because sometimes he'll have songs that aren't even that good, like a Tootsie Slide that could go number one a few years ago, but now it seems like he's not hitting that. So it seems like Kendrick or whatever, something's really took him down a notch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I gotta give it to Kendrick, man. But it was a fun battle. And I know Kendrick said no round twos, but it seems like it's kind of bubbling again. So I don't know what's gonna happen.
It was nice to see like an actual battle again in hip hop. Like he kind of disappeared for a bit. Eminem does his thing sometimes, but this was like hard hitting, but also low key in a way too. It was just these nice little jabs, but then it was just boom, 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 like piece after piece, and it was nice to see that again.
Yeah, that's so real. Like, yeah, you mentioned Eminem and even some of the other Drake ones, they often felt like one-sided or they would die out really quick. This
Hmm.
one felt really competitive. And I was inspired because like so many people will tell you like, oh, rap is dying. People don't want to hear people don't want to care about bars anymore. They want the melody and the vibe. And all of a sudden we were sitting there digesting 7 minute, like just pure lyrical songs, reading
Yeah.
Rap Genius lyrics as they came out. So to me, it was really like a resurgence and it showed that like that true essence of hip hop is here to stay. And no matter where the kind of mainstream goes, that there's always a place for that. And there's always fans for that. So
Yeah.
that was
Like,
cool.
yeah, myself, like I'm an old school hip hop guy. Like I love the boom bap stuff, the lyrical stuff, all that stuff. And the mumble rap now is not really my thing, but I get the evolution and I get where that's going. But I love to see the bars, the lyrics, all that stuff come into play. It's just that's what makes me excited for hip hop when I see it.
100%. Me too. Me too. I love those songs where you can listen to it a few times, 5 times, 10 times, and catch things on that fifth, tenth listen, like
Mhm.
little bars, little double entendres, layering with the songs and the deep messages. Like, that's I think what makes rap and hip hop stand out from all the other genres is just how intricate and clever you can be with the actual lyrics. And that's something I've always really, really loved about it. It really is like modern poetry.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of some modern poetry, you have some new music coming out yourself. Recent
Yes,
release, you have
sir.
Rodeo, and you got a new album dropping soon. So give me the lowdown about that, those two.
Yeah, so like I said, I've loved hip hop ever since I was a young kid, and I grew up mainly in Brampton. And my background's Indian, my family's from India, and Brampton itself is very predominantly Indian. It's probably the most Indian city in all of Canada. I think it's like 60% South Asian.
Okay.
And so that immigrant culture mixed with kind of the population that was already here in Brampton really is what made hip hop so strong and so appealing to a lot of us, I think, in the 2000s, because we didn't necessarily relate to the mainstream Canadian culture of whatever pop and stuff was going on at the time. But rap back in the 2000s was still a bit counterculture. Like our parents didn't want us listening to it because of all the swearing and the kind of explicit culture. And so we were listening to it just as friends and it connected us. But there was so much depth and meaning and like strength in the music that really drew us all to it. And that's something you find with a lot of people throughout Brampton. So growing up, we all loved hip hop, but then my South Asian side, I was heavily inspired and kind of around a lot of Bollywood music, Punjabi music, and all that kind of stuff from South Asia. So that's always kind of had a place in my heart and my love for music as well, especially the musicality aspect and just the energy that a lot of those songs bring. And when I started rapping, I didn't really incorporate the two. I started rapping to rap, and that was something I always loved. And slowly over the years, I started to realize and think like, you know what? I always did love when Timbaland and Kanye and Just Blaze were sampling Indian songs and Bollywood songs and mixing those into the hip hop, right? And so then I started doing that myself, just here and there, a song here, some lyrics here, where I would mix in Hindi or my other language is Gujarati. I'd mix in some of that, and I kind of really like this idea of kind of blending the cultures and creating this unique lane and this unique sound that other people aren't doing, and maybe they don't have the ability to do it as authentically because they weren't raised in this world. So with this album, it's my second album. My first one came out 3 years ago, Full Circle, but this album's fully South Asian inspired, meaning all the songs have South Asian samples or instruments. They deal with topics regarding kind of the immigrant experience or the Indian experience in Canada or back home in India. And they have features from Canada, US, and India that are from all parts of the South Asian diaspora singing and rapping. For example, that song Rodeo you mentioned is a Punjabi English song. So the other artist Rose is singing on Punjabi on the whole song, and I come in with some English verses. We have a girl from Bombay who's rapping in three languages, Marathi, Hindi, and Gujarati mixed. We have other rappers rapping in Hindi, Urdu. Um, we have a girl on the very first song singing in classic Carnatic style, which is like classical Indian style. They have like their whole own scale of notes versus what the Western side has. So that's going to be really cool to kind of set the theme of the album right off the intro. And yeah, like this is something I've always kind of been not always, but I've been planning for the last few years just as I've been growing into my career. And that first album was really something I wanted to make for myself and kind of showcase me. So there is some sampling of from India and things like that mixed in there, but this one I really took that theme and went full on with the second one to make an album that's it's still from my perspective and it's still about me for sure, but it's also bigger than me. I feel like this album represents a community and a diaspora of people and it's something that I wanted to do for the people, you know. So like that's something I also say too is like I like to make my music for the people, and it's bigger than just me. And with this album, I think I'm really putting my foot down and doing that.
Hmm. So what would you say is the biggest evolution between the two albums and just your music in general as you've been growing?
I think not the quality of the songs, but the level at which I'm making the songs and the intent. I think I've always been focused on making sure my lyrics and every word has purpose and intention. I actually don't swear in my music. That's something I've never really done. I've never done at all. Not because I don't necessarily swear in real life, but more just because I find like sometimes we use cuss words as like a crutch just to fill in bars and they sound good in raps. So I
Hmm.
try to like challenge myself by not doing that, and it's definitely made me more conscious of what words I'm putting into my music and making sure they all have purpose. And so with this album, I think um, the themes are a lot stronger and a lot more clear in each song. I'm better at just really getting my songwriting down and making sure each song hits in the way it needs to hit. There's a lot of different genres and vibes in this album, so kind of making sure it all flows through cohesively while being unique, but also joining together was an interesting challenge. But I think it really flows well, and it's concise. Like the last album was 12 songs, about 39 minutes. This album's only one song less at 11 songs, but it's 28 minutes. So every song um does what it needs to do, and there's features on every song, but there's no filler, you know, there's no wasted time or energy, and every bit of the album has a purpose, and it flows really well throughout. I'm really excited for people to hear this one, and I think it really transports you. The album's called Motherland, and I think it really transports you to the motherland for that 28 minutes.
Hmm. No, it sounds like you put a lot of thought in just how you were structuring everything, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think nowadays, because of streaming and how singles go, like if you want to make an album, there needs to be a purpose and there needs to be cohesion and a really well thought out plan and purpose behind it. And so for me, uh, that's the reason like I wanted to make this album. The last couple of years, I was doing singles and those were fun, and each single kind of lives on its own. But
Hmm.
to then tie these songs together and create a project that lives together is was important to me, and it was I think it was time to really put this out. So
Yeah. So what do you think is the most interesting thing you've learned about yourself while your career's been developing?
man, I think for me, like hip hop honestly really changed my life. Like I was always growing up, I was always a very anxious kid. Like literally the Eminem song, knees weak, palms are sweaty. That was me every day before class presentations, before any type of public speaking or having to put myself out there in front of people. And that didn't really ever change all through grade school, high school until I started rapping. And then even when I started rapping, and I was doing shows. I was doing my high school talent shows. I was doing open mics in the city. I was so nervous and so anxious, and like it was through those experiences of performing and putting myself out there that I grew into myself. And if I never picked up rapping or wanting to make music, I would have probably always stayed in my shell and never really experienced my true potential as a person. You know, so for me, like that's the main thing that rap's really allowed for me is to grow into my own and show the world like who this person was that was always existing in my head, but I never really let him out there into the world. You know, I was always just kind of living in my own head. And
Mhm.
now through the music, I've gained the confidence and experience to really be out there and to speak my mind and to put that energy out there. So the main thing I've really learned is like it was always there in me, you know, the confidence, the ability, like the potential was always there in me, and a lot of self-doubt and anxiety kind of diminished that light. And through music and really trying and failing so much, but like never giving up and believing in this goal, it really allowed me to grow. And now, you know, I feel so much more comfortable with myself and so much more confident to talk to you. Like even an interview like this, even though it's virtual right here, like I would feel super nervous and like way more clammy if we were doing this 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. So
Oh, I feel that, man. I was never the guy who used to get in front of a camera. These interviews only started because of COVID.
Yeah,
So like I was a guy always behind the camera shooting the pictures, doing those things, and COVID
right.
popped up and now I have interviews and they are probably they're pretty close to tied for the top thing on with hidden beats now, other than the live shows and things like that. They kind of took a life of their own.
Yeah, that's awesome. And have you felt like you've grown as an interviewer over the years?
Oh, 100%, man. I go back and look some of my old stuff and just cringe at everything. Like I would fumble things, take, my notes would be all off. I'd be saying the wrong type of, words, people's names I'd be screwing up. It just, I felt uncomfortable doing it, but then working my way into it and, just being generally, I like to classify myself as both introvert and extrovert. So if
Mm.
I could not see people for a whole week, I'd be more than happy with that. But then I can also flick that switch and be very kind of personable and everything when I need to be. So I really honed that skill with doing some of these interviews for sure.
Yeah, I can see that, man. You're definitely very professional here, and it's a testament to the those previous ones that you kind of got to go through those, those reps
Mm.
to get to here. So even if we look back and we're like, ah, that's cringy or whatever, it's like now we had to do those to now be able to do this.
Yeah, and everything builds you in some fashion. So that's you're always pushing forward doing something. That's the way it should be, I think.
Yep.
Hmm. So you're a fan of music, and I assume you watch a lot of different things on YouTube, things like that. Fun question I ask all my interviews. What's one thing you think should be asked more in an interview that's not asked enough?
Hmm, that's a good question. That question itself is a good one to ask because now I'm thinking about questions.
Hmm.
Um,
I look at this two ways also. So it could be something that maybe if you're watching like one of your idols you're looking at, you want to know something interesting about him, or just something that you wish more people knew about you, for instance.
Yeah, that's good. I think when I'm watching interviews, I love the stories, you know. I love when they dive deep into like the making of the song or the album and they kind of gear it in a way where it gets the artist to tell some anecdote or some story regarding the process or some funny thing that happened with them while making it or on tour or something that just opens up their personality, but also just gives you insight into the creative process and things like that. Like I was just watching a Denzel Curry interview. He just dropped his new album and he was breaking down how he linked up with that Mexican OT. And the story was mainly really about their phone call and some random obscure movie that they connected on. And he started like explaining the whole movie. And so now I'm on the side like looking up this movie, you know. So
Yeah.
I think things like that were cool because it just showed me like, oh, these guys are friends and they're boys, like outside of just this song. Like they actually became homies first, and like here's their little backstory. And that adds to the song too. Now when I hear that song and when I watch the video and they're both rapping each other's lyrics, I'm like, okay, this wasn't like some acting. Like this is real, you know?
Mm. Yeah, I did an interview with the Plain White Tees recently, and I had some stories like that coming out of their camp, and it was cool to see just kind of how they bond with each other doing what they're doing, and it made that just a little bit better now that I listen to their stuff.
Yeah. Did you ask him about Wagwan Delilah?
I touched base on that. We only had a few minutes, but they thought it was definitely interesting. And one of the fun stories they had about they were at I don't remember what festival it was, but they played Hey There Delilah and it turned into like a wall of death with one dude standing in the center just like mooning them. And then
What?
the two, yeah, it was in, this is for Hey There Delilah too. So it's, you think about that and it's like, what the hell is going on here? And then the wall of death and the two sides just collided. And it's like, how do you wrap your head around that type of story? And you think, man, you guys see some stuff out there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mhm. Yeah, they were fun guys too. And it's fun to touch, on those stories, like you said, and get a little bit insight of everyone.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a good story.
Hmm. Okay, so a fun one for you then. Who plays you in the movie of your life?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I want to give it to a brown guy so we can be accurate. So there's a guy named Dev Patel. Do you know Dev Patel?
I do, yeah.
Recently just directed and acted in his own movie called Monkey Man, which is kind of like John Wick. It's a super dope movie.
Hmm.
He was also in Slumdog Millionaire back in the day when he was young. And I'm actually a Patel as well, so we're from the same state in India. So I think that'd be cool. He's a really cool actor from the UK, and he's doing big things. So shout out Dev Patel.
Yeah, that'd be a cool one. And yeah, I watched Monkey Man and I thought, okay, this kind of it's almost like a unique way of how they put the whole thing together, but still
Yeah.
holds home to that style that you're looking for.
Yeah, no, that was a really good movie. They made that in the pandemic, so they were limited to like 500 people total for the whole production and everything. I was reading some backstory. It was actually really cool how they got it done.
Yeah, I was reading about so one of the things I used to do also is some videography and stuff like that. So I was reading how they actually shot some of it and the production
Hmm.
value behind it. It was interesting to see how they did that.
Yeah, some of those shots were crazy with the fight scenes.
hmm I actually I saw a review on it at one point. One guy was talking about how they must have changed like videographers midway through because all of a sudden scenes changed a little bit differently. They
Hmm.
decided to tweak something a little bit differently because it went from one style to almost like a completely different one at the near the back half.
Oh, dang, I gotta watch that because that sounds really interesting, like the insight behind that.
Yeah, I actually went looking for that after, and you can kind of see where some of the shifts happen too, and you're like, oh, okay.
Mm.
Like, it's almost like they decided to take it up a different level, or like just try to process things a bit differently. And it was kind of that shift is interesting.
Yeah.
hmm
That's interesting how much impact like even things like that can have, you know, within a movie. You don't even think about all the elements that go into making a movie as it is.
Yeah, that whole process is insane. I actually shot a feature film, a few years back, and then thinking about every little piece of information you have to kind of keep track of, and that it's a whole big thing, and it's interesting to watch just how big some of these projects can get. And if you look at like The Weeknd, he just shot his new music video on an iPhone 16. Like that's insane.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
things you can do these days. Okay, another fun one for you then. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
You know what's crazy is in the pandemic, I used to do IG lives, and this was one of my go-to questions for
Yeah.
my audience. So for me personally, I gotta say it is a sandwich because I'm gonna just define sandwich as things between two pieces of bread. Now
hmm
the argument here is okay, it's one piece of bread, like it's joined,
Yeah.
but then I gotta counter that with a submarine Subway sandwich, which is also a sandwich, but the bread is technically joined.
Yeah.
So I got one alternative that someone threw at me that was like, okay, this is kind of clever, is you could consider it a taco because a taco is three walls of bread with one opening.
Okay.
So then you would have to technically call a submarine sandwich a taco as well. But I could give you hot dog as a taco, but I'm gonna go hot dog as a sandwich 100%.
I actually have some of those exact same arguments when people think like come to me with like no, but you look at a sub, go to Subway and it's just a piece of bread that's cut open and you call
Yep.
that a Subway sandwich. So I'm right on the same page with you there.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a good one though. It always gets people heated for no reason.
It's the great debate question because then
Yeah.
all of a sudden people have the most polarizing like thoughts on it too. Like it's yes or no, there's no in between. Like you're crazy for thinking things like that.
Yeah. The funniest one is like when people will be like, okay, if I go ask for a sandwich and someone gives me a hot dog, like, would you be happy? And I'm like, I mean, you're right, but like still.
Although I'm a big fat guy. If I got a hot dog, I still don't think I'd complain. It's a hot dog. It is what it is.
You still eat it,
Yeah. So it's good either way as long as it tastes good.
yeah.
All right. More serious questions now. If you had to introduce your music to a new fan for the very first time, what's the first song they need to listen to?
Yeah, I would definitely tell them to listen to Not For Me. That's currently my most streamed single. But also beyond that, it's the song that I made right after I quit my job to go full time into music. And I think it really encapsulates a bit of my backstory and also the overall vibe and energy of the song. It perfectly encapsulates that title of Conscious Bangers. It's upbeat, it's catchy, but there's heavy lyricism in the verses, a lot of multi-scheme rhymes and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think it's just overall, it's the perfect like capture of Spitty as a brand, as an artist.
Okay. Yeah, it's nice because those are the ones you want people to see first because it usually opens them to the rest of your catalog and going through and picking out songs and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Okay, so what do you hope fans take away from your music as a whole? Well, you talked about a few different things, but just kind of generally encompassing everything.
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing I've always wanted people to take away from my music is to kind of leave feeling motivated and inspired in whatever way that might be, and to really be the best version of themselves, you know? Not all the songs are gonna always be directly positive or upbeat. Some of them are more sad and talking about real things, but through those messages, I just want people to kind of reflect and remember like that their life is valuable and they're important, and that you can use music to kind of help you get through life, and hopefully you continue to live life and be the best you could be every day. Everyone's life isn't always the best in the moment, but if you can kind of remember that there's hope and opportunity to improve your life if you keep going and you keep trying, then that's really my main hope and goal with my music.
No, that sounds like a good one. I like that. Now, what motivates you to keep walking down the music road you're going down?
Yeah, it's been a crazy long journey, and there's definitely been times where I've thought about quitting or thinking like, dang, like why is this not working or why am I stuck? Especially in the first, like I started 12 years ago, and I would say the first 6, 7 years, it was a lot of that because I was kind of just stuck. I wasn't really getting consistent momentum and growth. But even around that time, I think the main thing that kept me going is this idea and this thought that like I knew I could achieve what I wanted to, and I knew I wasn't there yet. I still had bigger dreams for myself as an artist. I still do to this day. And I know like my potential is there. And the only way I would ever reach those goals is if I actually went myself and kept trying. And if I ever stop, then that itself is the failure, is to stop. As long as you keep trying, then there's opportunity to keep growing and keep winning. So it's been a long journey. And I would say over these last, 5 years, I've been able to build up that now consistent growth. And over this past year, it's become really growing quicker and more exponentially. And it's probably just a testament to a lot of the work I've put in. But it's kind of like that picture, that meme that comes up sometimes where the guy's digging and then like he's right near the diamonds or the gold
Yeah.
and he stops right there in the tunnel because he's too tired or whatever and he thinks he's put in all this work. But you really never know when that moment's coming, when that trophy, that gold, that diamond's coming. So I've had this vision and this goal in my mind since I was, super young, and I haven't fully achieved it yet. And that kind of just relentless hustle to reach that goal is what's kept me pushing. And but beyond that, that belief that in myself, knowing like I can do it, like even if I haven't done it yet, or even when times when things weren't going well at all in terms of the music career, like I still believed like I will be able to make it happen. And that's kind of what's really kept me pushing.
So it's almost like a callback to having like that Nas track play in the back of your head.
100%. I reference that song because it's really shaped like my love for music, really my love, my life, Like I think music, especially hip hop, can be so impactful on people's lives as a whole and like how they live day to day. And Nas, that song is definitely one of those that shaped me as a person.
For sure. All right, most important question. I always like to end with this one. Well, I guess not always, but for the most part, I do. Is are you happy?
That's a great question. I am definitely happy. There's been times in my life where if you ask me this question, maybe like 7, 8 years ago, the answer might have been different. But for me right now, I've really made a conscious effort to sort of wake up every day and curate and shape my life into what I want it to be.
Mhm.
I think sometimes life gets super overwhelming because there's just so much going on and there's so many things in the future we're working towards or trying to reach and achieve. And that can become like anxiety inducing and also just feel overwhelming and stressful. And it makes us not feel happy in the present, maybe because we're not achieving them or we don't know what our direction is. And so for me, like over those years, I really just try to take it day by day and be like, can I finish the tasks for the day? Like if I accomplish this stuff for today, whether however small or big that is, like that's a win. And then just building on that, like rewarding myself from doing the work that I know I needed to do and kind of creating that gratification to the point where then I'm able to do the work without needing that gratification, and I just enjoy or am happy to do the work itself because I know it's necessary. And so yeah, man, like long story short, I'm definitely happy these days. There's still a lot of work to do, and not every day or every moment's going to be happy in life. And I think that's with anybody. But overall, if you can kind of just stay the course and let those emotions flow through you, you could be good. So for me, yeah, man, I'm happy. I appreciate that question though, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one that a lot of people need to reflect on sometimes because you don't always think about what you have, what you've accomplished, and just where you're going. And life gets hectic, man. Trust me. I know that. I've got a kid on the way like in 3 weeks. So my life is
Oh,
literally gonna go
congrats, man.
nuts right now. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Like actually, you're gonna be one of my last video interviews for until the new year, probably.
Oof, locked it in, man.
Yeah.
Congrats on the new family though. That's awesome, bro.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy and everything, but it's gonna be fun, that's for sure.
Yeah, man. That's super dope.
Hmm. All right, man. That's all the points I have here. We're coming to a close. Any final words of wisdom you want to leave to people?
That was great, man. Shout out Hidden Beats. It's been an honor to have this interview with you, Tom. Honestly, to the people reading or listening, just keep being the great you are, keep striving for whatever you want in life and never give up, You got to be your biggest motivator and only you can stop you. So keep going for yourself.
Hmm. And if you ever come to Ottawa, you hit me up and I'll come out. We'll take some shots of show that you're doing or whatever. We'll have some fun with it for sure.
100%, 100%, man. I got some plans to get out in Ottawa. I'm speaking with some of the people over at Cranium as well, so
Okay, I
we're
know those
lining some
guys
things
well.
up.
Yeah, yeah, those
Yeah,
cool guys.
for
Awesome.
sure.
Well, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, man, I'm on all platforms, SPITTY95, that's Spitty95, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all that good stuff. And on all streaming platforms, just Spitty, SPITTY. Yeah, man, appreciate you guys. Album coming soon. It's gonna be a good one.
Awesome. We're gonna make sure we link that for everyone to come find you and check out the new stuff.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, man. We'll sign off, and you can enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, keep in touch because we always don't mind catching up over here.
Definitely, bro. I appreciate this interview and your time, man. Thank you.
100%. All right, you have a good one.
Much love.
Bye.
Peace.